short and sweet, you know. Okay, let me so one we're doing today is the Empress. And there's let me expand this some. There's an easy way to remember the Empress. So if you imagine a moment when you were touched by the magician's wand and with the creative waters stirred, and then you have a long time of brooding and gestation that follows, where we are contained in the images, where we're almost submerged into the watery, lunary world of the Popus. So you have the magician, then the Popus that contains it. And then comes a moment when the images and the felt ideas come into reality. The clay takes form, the canvas is covered in paint, words cover the paper. We see our way through the dilemma. That manifestation is the Empress. And one of the Empress's chief functions is to connect the primary energies of yin and yang to give them a body in the world of sensory experience. So it's through her intuitive leaps rather than the masculine logic that the spirit leaps forth into the outer space to connect with celestial insight. The key to her power is active inspiration and love. She moves us to action and self-realization. So the Empress is the link between spirit and matter. And you can think about this as the phenomenon of synchronicity, where there's an activated archetype such as the Empress. So when an emotion touches the unconscious, it stimulates, interest, creativity, expectation, and consequently evokes a corresponding preponderance of the unconscious, making the possibility that connection with the external events. It becomes luminous if we can hold the tension with the brooding and gestation for the form, the symbol to appear. So I like that, it takes into account both the Popus and the Empress, but for the manifestation, you have to hold the brooding. So numerologically, the Empress is the number 3, which unites opposites and embraces them both. This is reflected in all the trinities, such as the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. The third member in trinities acts as the equilibrating factor in such a way as to produce a new reality. To contrast the Popus with the Empress, the Popus is High Priestess and Virgin, the Empress is Madonna and Royal Queen. The Popus serves the spirit, the Empress fulfills the spirit. With the Popus, the spirit, the Holy Ghost, descends into matter to be made flesh. With the Empress, the spirit is born into outer reality as the Son of Man and ultimately rises heavenward again as the spiritual Son or the Redeemer. The Popus is patience and passive waiting. The Empress is action and completion. The Popus is ruled by love. The Empress rules by love. The Popus guards something old. The Empress reveals something new. So in short, the Popus holds the book of prophecy, and the Empress enacts and fulfills this prophecy. Her negative aspect is the terrible mother with its devouring and smothering aspects. In myths, she appears as the devouring mother who eats her own children. She is the cruel mother nature that seeks to repossess all life, to pull it back into her primal womb. When her strength moves from the power of love to the love of power, then she becomes a man-eater. So that's it for the Empress. It's all yours, Azin.
Beautiful, Gary. Thank you. Now, do you have this written down somewhere?
Yeah. I'll share the link. It's like, well, so here's my thought on this. Because I just feel like if we become more aware of the archetypes, then we can kind of associate them when we see them in ourselves. But like what I'm doing with them, I don't see as real, I'm giving characteristics, but I think the strength in this is actually what Azin is going to do today is if you can actually, give like the manifestation, sort of put it into a mythology. So, I'm going to be going back through these and associating them to fables and things, but I'm actually really looking forward to Azin's presentation today.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I wanted to do this presentation for a long, long time, but you asked the question and encouraged me. So, all right, so my presentation today is about the cunning fool, the archetype, the fool archetype, and how this archetype is manifesting in our world and different cultures. So the first thing that I want to say about this archetype, actually every archetype has this aspect that they have at first they're possessing us, so we get the worst face or an immature face of these archetypes, and then later when we grow and have a better relation with these archetypes, they will give us their gifts. So the fool basically is discussed under two terms, the innocent and the fool. The innocent is, you see this picture, this guy doesn't know anything, just really innocent person. And doesn't know much about life, just very positive and trusting to everything. This guy, the fool, is completely different. So he knows about what is going on in the world, the pain, how people can treat you. This world can be a hell. But he chooses to be bigger than life, right? And laugh at everything, dark humor. But he's wise, he's not stupid, he's not, it's not the beginning of this archetype. This archetype can be presented in twins. Like we have these Dumb and Dumber characters, Laura and Hardy. One of them is completely a fool, like innocent. And the other one is a little bit more aware of the realities of the life, right? But who is smarter, Dumb or Dumber? Dumb is smarter, but for some reason, the one that is real innocent, he makes things happen because he trusts in everything. He believes that everything is possible. And so he can do this, he can have a lighter on his thumb, but the other one can't. Even if he tries, he will fail. So the purity of the energy is gone. Fool is the first card in every tarot deck. And if you see, this guy is just having fun, wandering around and picking flowers, and he's not aware that what is waiting for him in this world. But the interesting thing is that even though he does not know anything of the inner journey, the path that is ahead of him, he somehow steps into the right path. If you see here, there's a path. And so innocently, he does the right thing. He laughs and the world laughs with him. I'm just describing the energies that is revealed in this archetype. So only fools rush in, right? Fool holds the image of the paradise, the idea of the paradise, because the real innocent lives in a paradise and is the center of existence. This is the core, the narcissistic core in every one of us. But then we fall, okay? We fall and we realize what is going on this planet. So everything that we begin with full archetype. Is the beginner. If we don't have a picture, an image, an idea of a paradise, we won't get married. We won't start a new project. We won't start anything. It is the image of the paradise that encourages us to start something. So every time that we start something, the fool is activated in us. Of course, he makes mistakes, and somehow, especially in the beginning, we talk about the beginner's luck, right? In the beginning, there's a lot of luck with the fool. Somehow he makes things happen. And it seems the beginning of our inner journey like a very minor archetype, but it's not. It's extremely powerful archetype. And look at this guy. He's thinking, he's saying a human can fly. So this idea is really foolish. How can a human fly like birds? But then we have airplanes and we are traveling to Mars and Moon, you know? So it's a kind of trust to a process that you don't know anything about it. But the energy of this archetype makes it happen. This is Norman Rockwell's April Fool fishing. He's fishing lobster out of a plum's can. How is this possible? And you see around him, just the telephone is not working. There's a nest on the phone. He's completely detached from the realities or other people. And there's danger all around him, but somehow he's protected because he's innocent. Another manifestation is Mullah Nasruddin, mostly in Middle Eastern countries, Turkey, Iran. This guy does stupid things. Like in one of the stories that is told that is related to Mullah Nasruddin, he was actually a real person, but then he became this mythic character. And someday Mullah Nasruddin is looking for a needle on the street, and somebody says, "What are you looking for?" He says, "In my needle." And he says, "Where did you lost your needle?" He says, "In my home." And he says, why are you looking in the street for the needle?" And he says, "Because inside the home is dark. There's more light here." So there's always this kind of things that are stupid, but it makes us think about how we act in our life, and same stupidity sometimes. This guy is Bohlul. He's a Sufi character. He walks around and he's a wanderer, and he asks basic, original, out-of-the-box questions. So this is a part that if it's not active in us, we will never be able to get out of the box, because it's the beginning, it's new, it's a new vision in everything. Of course, clowns are manifestations of the fool. They're funny, they're entertaining, but there's also this aspect of the clown that it is sad or even scary. This is a face of trickster as a manifestation of fool, jester or Hermes. It's very hermetic. It's cunning and deceitful. It's a shapeshifter. It's a twister of realities. And all of the things that he does, he's showing us what a layer in life, like life can be a shapeshifter. The realities that we count on and believe on, they can change in a minute. So this is manifestation of the life. Look into this guy's eyes. He sees through you. So the eyes show us that he's a wise guy, but he's looking from beyond and he can't see through you because he knows you, because he was there, he knew what you have been through. Another twin fool character is Zani and Pantalone, Italian Commedia dell'arte. So the scenario-based and improvised drama of Commedia dell'arte includes characters who are of fixed social types, such as the foolish, greedy master Pantalone, the cunning, devious servant Zani, and the audience, who are driven by money, food, and sexual desires. By fooling the master, Zani holds a mirror to the audience's foolish greediness. The dialogue between the servant and the master becomes the inner dialogue of the audience. He basically reveals our own inner dialogue. Despite the many variations and interpretations of these archetypal characters, certain characteristics like masks, costumes, and props remain constant. So this is it's a very traditional theatrical thing in Italy. So I'm going to tell you more about these two characters. Pantalone is the rich and greedy Venetian merchant, constantly afraid of others, stealing his possessions, such as his money and his gold. Pantalone is on the top of the social hierarchy and owns servants and women. He seems to be the smart one, but Zani teases him and makes fun of him to reveal his selfishness and greed, which are foolish characteristics at the end of the day. Zani is a character type best known as an astute servant and a trickster. He comes from the countryside and is known to be a disposed immigrant worker. During the play, he shows us who the real fool is, and it's not just Pantalone. So he's mirroring us. He's showing us our foolishness, our greed, by teasing the master. Another twin characters manifestation of the fool is Santa Claus and Black Pete or Zwarte Piet. But before this twin happens, we actually have Black Nicholas. Black Nicholas was a bishop of Greek origin. He lived in Myra, Greece, and then after the Ottoman Empire took over, it's now Turkey. So a Christian land became a Muslim land. This guy was a saint, considered a saint because of the miracles that he performed. One of them was saving 3 innocent men from being executed. He also saved 3 girls from prostitution by paying their dowry to their father. He threw 3 golden balls into their home. Remember these balls. He saved 3 children who were killed and pickled in a barrel to be sold as ham. But he arrives and he makes the cross sign and they become alive again. So he saves the children. In 1085, his bones were taken to Bari, Italy, and most of them are now kept in Basilica di San Niccolo. This is where people make pilgrimage to this place. These golden balls, they may relate to those balls that San Niccolo throw in the father's home. But San Nicola also gifted fruits and nuts to children. So the tradition of giving gifts starts here. And the fun fact is a $25 million business per year. Transformation of San Nicolas to Santa Claus. In 1085, which is 18th century, remains are brought from Muslim land to Bari, and the pilgrimage starts to Italy. All through 11th century, Roman Catholic Church celebrated December 6th to December 28th. December 6th is when the Black Nicholas died, December 6th. And to this day, we celebrate this as Santa's Day, Santa's night. December 28th is related to will you be able to see my screen? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, because it gives me this notification that you can see it. So anyway, December 28th is the date of another Nicola who was living in Italy. He was a good guy. I don't think he was a saint, but somehow the character of Black Nicola and this Nicola merged together. So the celebration happens between December 6th to December 28th. And somewhere in this, during this time, Santa catches a beast. The story enters into the tradition that Santa has catched a beast. So in schools, one child would be Santa and others would be the devil or the beast that he caught. In 12th century, banned by Protestants as idolatry, forbidden on the streets, yet celebrated at home. So at some point, Santa was banned, and but people keep doing the ceremonies and games and things at home. So somewhere between 12th century or 18th century, Santa emerges as a bird white man accomplished by a captured black beast. And the transformation of both Santa and the beast begins. This is more expressive of what happened because the Black Nicholas is now separated into two characters: Santa, which is white and good, and the part that is black and evil. There's also this character, Odin, or Wodan, or Wotan, who is a Nordic German father god that contributes to the image of Santa that we have today. So in short, the transformation is from Dark Nicholas to Santa Claus. This guy was living in Greece and he did some miracles. This guy lives in North Pole and brings gifts to children, something that Dark Nicola was actually doing. And so this transformation happens. This part, they're all good and white. It's called Santa Claus, Kris Kringle, Father Christmas in Europe or Britain, and Papa Noel in many European countries. Santa Claus is portrayed as an old white, wise and articulated man. He's kind and forgiving, lives in the North Pole with his affable wife and a bunch of elves who make presents that will later be delivered to the good kids. So see how one archetype is manifested and it travels and it changes and it affects culture and is affected by the culture. So the dark side of Santa, the beast who he caught, later manifests in three characters: Krampus, Zwarte Piet, and the servant or the slave. And we're going to go through these manifestations a little bit more. But the basic, the initiative part is the Krampus. It's a beast. But then it gets tamed and become this funny clown-like zany type Zwarte Piet. Zwarte means Schwarz or black, so it's Black Pete. And then we have the servant or the slave who's completely tamed, and this one is black by nature, but this blackness doesn't have anything to do with black slavery. It's because it's unknown, it is evil and dark. These guys, the Zwarte Piet and the servant, the stories are different. So let's go through each of them one by one. The other side, the black side, the black and evil, is in Krampus and early stages of Zwarte Piet. The blackness is not contributed to race yet. It's related to darkness and evil. While Krampus is pure evil, Zwarte Piet is a young, black, simple boy with a cheeky grin, classically followed by a reprimand from the saint. The servant is completely tamed, yet still bad and inferior by nature. And it's sad. It's not happy like Zwarte Piet. Krampus is Santa's darkest shadow. Krampus is out there by itself, separated from Santa by 16th century. Krampus is bestial and hairy, has horns of a goat and fangs. He has one foot, a reminder of the time he was a human, and one hoof. His long pointed tongue lolls out to catch and bind children. He carries chains. The chains are somehow loose around his feet. He's not in chain. He has broke out of chains, which symbolizes the binding of the devil by the Christian church. Is of pagan origins, very close to Pan, carries bundles of birch branches with which he swats children. So he punishes the children. He's always looking for bad kids and wants to punish them. Carries a basket strapped to his back to cart off naughty children for drowning, eating, or transport to hell. So Santa and Krampus initially worked together. They've been portrayed together. This one punishes the bad kids. This one gives gifts to the kids. To this day, in countries like Austria, Santa is still seen by a bunch of Krampus figures. So they still sometimes show their relationship. Separation of Krampus. Krampusnacht is December 5th, a night before December 6th, which is Santa's night. And Krampuslauf is when I went to Austria, everybody would tell me at Krampus night, beware, they can come out of any corner and they're very scary. So you're supposed to run away when you see Krampus because he's gonna catch you and punish you. And today there's Krampus party. There's a lot of fun. People are making fun of Krampus, and it's really interesting ceremony in countries like Austria, Germany, even US. And in Vienna, you can have up to 1,000 Krampi. See if we can see this one. So it's really a scary ritual, but they have turned it into something fun. So the second face of the black side of Santa Claus is Zwarte Piet. It's the closest face to the cunning fool and zany. He's not evil, but inferior. He's not black, but blackened. Sometimes it's played by women these days. Recently, it's played by women. You see, Santa is washing Zwarte Piet, and he's white. He's not black. In 17th century, he starts to relate to slavery, appears in chains, and these chains are not loose around his feet. They're really chained him around his neck, hands, and feet. He's just showing the slavery aspects. Starts to have a Moorish accent, somebody from coming from Morocco, then just a stupid way of talking. So accent again. The servant or the slave boy is the tame beast. An obedient slave servant is blackened by the soot when going down the chimney. Black but not evil, just inferior and sad about it. And he also speaks with an accent. You see, this accent shows that this person is an immigrant, is a stranger to the land, and it's important for the role that he plays. By the end of 17th century, the servant appears as a complete slave with black face, curly wig, and red lips. Zwarte Piet and the servant both speak with an accent. Krampus doesn't talk, it makes animalistic sounds. When Santa Claus reappeared at the end of the 18th century after being banned, he returned alone without any of his black companions. Currently, Zwarte Piet and Krampus often appear by themselves in some European countries. So they are now completely separated from Santa. Whom does Zwarte Piet remind you of? Of course, Danny. This picture has been taken in 2013 in Amsterdam, and people are demonstrating against Zwarte Piet, and they say it's racist. So basically, there are four faces that I'm talking about them today. Zani, Jim Crow, Zwarte Piet, and Caucasia, which is Persian. Jim Crow was a song and dance performance in 1828 created by white minstrel performer Thomas Dartmouth, inspired by a physically disabled African slave. So this guy originally is black, okay? But then a white guy blackens his face to show this character. Was a disabled African slave who, as a custom among black slaves at the time, has assumed his master's name and called himself Jim Crow. So this is actually Thomas Dartmouth Rice depicted as Jim Crow. Jim Crow was very much deformed. The right shoulder was drawn up high and the left leg was stiff and crooked at the knee, which gave him a painful, but at the same time, ludicrous limp. He was in the habit of crooning a queer old tune to which he had applied words of his own. Rice closely watched his unconscious performer. He was performing in a stable or something, and Rice saw him and recognized in him a character entirely new to the stage. Rice added his own funny words to the song. In the first stage performance of Jim Crow, the Louisville audience went mad with delight, recalling him on this first night at least 20 times. The song became a great 19th century hit and was performed by Rice all over the country. Jim Crow was inspired by the real black man, but performed by a black and white man, and later sometimes by black men later. He speaks and walks and behaves in a stupid way. He first appeared to be mocked, then transforms to a trickster. Throughout time, he transformed to this trickster. He becomes more of Zani, who criticizes the master, who mocks the white and the system. Okay, we have this character in Iran, Haji Firuz or Kakassia. Haji means a person who has done a pilgrim to Mecca. Firuz means victorious. Kaka means brother. Siyah means black. I will talk about all this later. Haji Firuz or Kakassia appears in Persian New Year ceremony, which is spring equinox. He's not black, but blackened and wearing red. He plays tambourine, sings, and dances in the streets, bringing the news of the arrival of the spring. He calls the audience my master or my masters, asks them why they are not laughing, and encourages them to forget about their problems and be joyful, even if it is just for this one day in a year. He speaks in a weird voice, pronounces words wrongly, sometimes uses special whistles in his mouth, which makes him hard to understand, yet funny, but also otherworldly. So Persian New Year is, this year is March 22. So we are getting ready for the New Year. And if you were in Iran, you would see this character on the streets, playing, dancing, singing his songs. And he's just bringing the news of the spring. So actually, these two characters, Haji Firuz, which is pilgrim, victorious, is post-Islamic invasion. Arabs invaded Iran and they imposed Islam to Iranians. Iranians were originally Zoroastrians. So this word shows that this character, whatever it is post-Islamic invasion, because these are Arabic words. Haji is a pilgrim, somebody who had taken a pilgrim to Mecca. And Firuz, the Farsi word for Firuz is Piruz, but it has Arabized and it's now pronounced Firuz. He appears with Amun-Noruz. This guy is Amun-Noruz. He's very close to Santa. He brings gifts for people, for children. And this character, Haji Firuz, sings and dances on the streets. Kakassia, which is brother black, is theatrical. Appears with the master, like Zani and the master, makes fun of the master, uses dark humor, speaks in a weird voice, acts and moves dramatically. So he's more a theatrical character. He's very smart and makes the audience laugh all the time and makes fun of the master. They are both performed by people, by white people who have blackened their face. In South Iran, we have black people, Afro-Iranian people who were brought to Iran by Portuguese ships. So they used to be slaves. But these characters are played by white people blackening their face. Okay, we have ancient roots for this character that is related to Haji Firuz. One is Mira Noruzi, the ruler of Noruz. And this is the character I talked about to you guys a while back. And he's a ruler for 3 days. Let me go to this next page. Mira Noruzi is the fool of the village, or a beardless man. In Farsi, it's called kuse, a person who doesn't have a beard, so impotent. And this ceremony is also called kuse barnishin, means kuse sitting on a horse. And the ruler who is not fertile, and this whole ceremony is a fertility ceremony, spring ceremony. So somehow it says the ruler who's not fertile, who's not good for the land, he must go. And originally it happened in leap years, the last days, and or in a 3 days, later in a 3 days period. Trickster, criticizing the ruler or the king, punished by the people at the end of the 3 days. And so what happens in these 3 days is that this person becomes the ruler. He gives funny orders, stupid orders, but everybody has to obey him. Then at the end of the 3 days, people beat him. And this punishment by people is actually protects this guy from being punished by the government and the ruler that he has been criticizing. The other one is, the other character that is related to Haji Firuz is Jam or Jamshid. In Persian mythology, we have Q-Mars. Q-Mars, Mars or man comes from the word marg or death. And Zan or Zendegi comes from Zendegi or life, which is a woman. Q-Mars is not Adam, but human mothel or prototype. So every human is created from his image. But Jam is a great, great, great son of Q-Mars and is a real person, is a king, the first king. So Jam extended the creation, spoke to animals, and ruled over the genie and devs, demons or devas, which were natural forces. He could see beyond time and place in his jam or cup or grail, holy grail. These made him a bed or carpet to take him to the sky. So everything we're reading here reminds of Solomon. Solomon had all these characters. So Jam got too proud of himself, declared divinity. He said, I'm God. And therefore he was punished for his hubris by Zahak, who cut him in half like a tree. So this myths, the Iranian or Middle Eastern myths, are vegetarian because it was the farming agriculture culture. And even other Adam and Eve are plants. Mashi and Mashion are two plants that they are the ancestors of all of us. Then because of his hubris and because Zahak killed him by cutting him in half, he's descended to the underworld, and every year in spring resurrects and comes to the surface, rebirths, and he wears red and black. Why red and black? Why wearing red and blackening the face? Using mud and ash is a common practice in Mesopotamian funeral rituals. Soil and ash represent death and being buried underground. So to this day, even in Shia Muslim ceremonies, in funerals for imams, you see this, they put ash and mud on their face. Red represents pomegranate, blood, virginity, and life. Pomegranate is the fruit of heaven, not apple. In Middle East, it's pomegranate. There's another character which contributes to the Haji Firuz. It's called Siavash. Siah means black, Vash means face. He's very handsome. He's accused of raping the king's wife. And so they find out that the woman accused him of trying to rape her. But then they found out that the shirt was torn on his backside, so he was running actually. But then he has to pass through fire, be tested by the fire. And although he's innocent and comes out of the fire alive, he has to leave Iran because the king loves his wife. Then he goes abroad and he gets killed. And every year it's resurrected with this black face. So here, when he passes through the fire, his face and his horse both are blackened by the soot, by the fire. So again, we see this theme of blackening here. Mythologically, it's close to Dumuzi, Inanna's husband who goes underworld, and also Dionysus, the sacrifice. The ceremonies that they do to this day in Iran, actually in a couple of days, we have Charashambhe Suri, which is the last Wednesday of the year. And every Iranian, you see them jumping over fire. But this is a reminder of Siavash and how he had to go through fire to prove that he's innocent. So last year, there was this huge debate in Iranian community inside Iran and outside Iran. I had this interview, and some people didn't like it because some people, mostly Iranian outside Iran, who are affected by the political correctness and stuff, they said that Haji Firuz is racist and we have to get rid of it. We cannot do this because it's racist. So there's basically two groups. One voice says it's racist. Blackness refers to the black race. Haji Firuz is about mocking and humiliating the slaves. It started in Qajar era when the slaves were shipped to Iran. The other voice says it's not racist. Blackness refers to darkness, unknown, underground, and evil. It's about mocking the greedy masters and rulers. The audience never laughed at Haji Firuz or Kakassia. They laughed with him at the master. It goes way back before slavery to ancient times. They say it's racist. Firuz was one of the Nasruddin Shah's favorite slaves. This guy, Nasruddin Shah, he was very proud of having slaves. And you see him taking pictures with his slaves. The slaves are wearing good clothes and they're well fed in a country that the citizens were dying in the streets of famine. So they were having a good life. He said, oh, what a nice guy. He's taking care of the slaves. But what we don't, most people don't know is that all these guys were castrated. And so there's brutality happening here. The Shah even sent him to Mecca and give this guy, Haji Firuz, the respectful title of Haji. So this guy is treating them like I'm sorry, just like pets and taking care of them. But it's really what is happening here is unhumane. When slavery was abolished in 1928, Firuz had to live on his own out of the palace. He got so poor that he had to perform funny shows on the streets. People would laugh at him and throw him coins. So those who believe that Haji Firuz is racist, this is what they say from about the origin of Haji Firuz. It's not racist. In Iran, black slavery started in early 16th century and ended in 1928. So it started later and it ended later, versus 1833 in Britain and 1865 in USA. For almost 4 centuries. Mir Noruzi, Kusa Barnishin, Sug Siavash, or the funeral for the Siavash, and Jamshid's resurrection ceremonies are all ancient practices from thousands of years ago. None of these mythological figures were black. They were all blackened, just like Haji Firuz. If it was about black slaves, there would be southern black men performing in the streets. This is Siavashan village in Iran, the ancient site of Sug Siavash, or funeral for Siavash ritual. So you see, it's a very, very old tradition. So I usually try to end my presentations not with answers, but with better questions asked by a third voice, somebody who can hear both sides, the opposite sides. The third voice here asks, could it be that both sides are right? Could an ancient mythological figure transform throughout the time? Did King Jamshid transform through the experience of slavery in Iran and even in other lands and cultures? So he might be the king of underworld and also a slave. What do all these four characters have in common? Zani, Zwarte-Piet, Jim Crow, and Caucasia. They all have accents. And having an accent or speaking weirdly is a kind of disability. We have most of these characters that are criticizing, tricksters, they have a kind of disability, deformation in the body. That might be a parameter that we take pity on them. We don't want to punish them for being, because they can be very rude, they can be very critical of us, of the system, of everything, life, God. So this disability maybe makes us just be soft on them and don't punish them and let them do their job, you know. And they're immigrants, so they are other. And as other, they can see us better than we see ourselves. They're tricksters, they question authorities, and they're blackened. Zani is not blackened. He wears masks in different colors, but some of them are black. This guy was originally black, right? But a white person is blackening himself to resemble him. These guys also, this guy was blackened by soot, and this guy is also, if we go back to the origin of Siavash, he was also blackened by fire and soot. Which one of these four characters is most obviously racist? I think Jim Crow. Then Zwarte-Piet and Caucasia, and then Zani. Zani is the least racist. This is Persian New Year, Nowruz parade in New York. This is before the lockdown. So people come in the street, and Caucasia is also part of the ceremonies. But if you see Caucasia on a street in New York, how many people watching this parade know about Jam or Siavash? What would New Yorkers think if they see this man on the street? Does he look like a resurrected king of the underworld or a slave who has just escaped plantation? This is the parade before lockdown. You see these three guys, young guys, they're probably students in New York, and they're playing Haji Firuz and Caucasia, but they're not blackening their face. Should we let Jamshid, 1,000 years old mystic figure, get totally canceled from the Iranian culture? This is a question, because this is 1,000 years old character. And there's a meaning behind blackening his face. He's resurrected, he's coming from the underworld. But today, can we do this? So these are big questions that we have to ask ourselves. Change is already happening. This is Zwarte-Piet, played by a woman. The face is green. The wig is curly but orange. This is an Iranian guy playing Haji Firuz, but he's painted his face in facing Iranian flag, green, white, and red. And this guy has been playing Haji Firuz in Iran for many, many years. He's famous, and he doesn't blacken his face. Should we consciously interfere with the process, the change? Should we consciously interfere with it? What should we do with politically incorrect mythic figures? This is a big question. So right now in Iranian community, there's a lot of discussion and debates, but some people really, really want him out. They don't want him. And the last question, how will the cunning fool manifest in the future? Thank you.
That was just amazing, Azin. I mean, it was just, just to be bathed in this symbolic thinking is just beautiful. You know, I wanted,
I don't know what's going on.
yeah. You know, there was in Native America, there was what black elk of the Lakota Sioux was a Heyoka. You know, he's a sacred clown, and the sacred clown reminds his people that the primordial energy of nature is beyond good and evil. It doesn't correspond to human categories of right and wrong. It doesn't always follow our preconceptions of what is expected and proper. It doesn't really care about our human woes and concerns. Like electricity, it can be deadly dangerous or harnessed for great uses. If we're too narrow or parochial in trying to understand it, it will zap us in the night. And you know, there was a figure in Europe called Till Eulenspiegel, and it means owl mirror. The thing was that an owl could never recognize itself in the mirror. Well, neither can we, you know, and that was what Till Eulenspiegel's role was, is to put the mirror before us, which we can't recognize. You know, and there's this beautiful, beautiful story in where it's a fairy tale, and at the beginning, the hobgoblins have constructed a mirror in which the beautiful will be ugly and the ugly will be beautiful, you know, and they are taking it up to heaven because they wanted God to look in it. Okay, this is the sacred clown is going to make fun of God, you know, and they couldn't wait to see what God's reaction was when they held this mirror up to him, and they got so giddy that they dropped it, you know, and it crashed into a million pieces. And if you got it in your eye, you know, you couldn't see clearly. If it was in your heart, it would be cold as ice, you know. And now Jung was also called a Till Eulenspiegel. This was a little thing. I mean, that's what everyone called Jung, that he was one of these people who, let me see if I can find this real quickly, and then because I know everybody's got a lot of comments, but he followed the downward movement of life because it was in keeping with the intrinsic truth of the moment. He could experience joy whenever it came his way, as few were able to, and wholeheartedly joined in the joy of others. Only when one got to know him better did one discover that he was a true Eulenspiegel, Owlmere, who was never without the canker of a secret care, for he knew the play of life's pendulum, the inevitable compensation of high by low. And have you suffered a success? Have you, he would ask people, mocking them, you know, half amused, you know, he was sorry that they had suffered a success, you know. He saw where it would end. Suffering accepted can gradually change into strength, composure, serenity, joy that remains heedless and can change all too quickly and too often into sorrow and restlessness. So suffering is a challenge that enforces self-transformation, the mortar and the pestle of the Baba Yaga. Joy is not, and it does so much more rarely. So Jung's any kind of joyful Christianity or sentimental prettification exasperated Jung to the limit. Never shall I forget his outburst of scorn and anger over a card announcing the birth of a child that was garnished with customary sentimental embellishments. The sorrows of life, the wretchedness of the times was alive and present for him in every moment as realities that had to be endured. This open-eyed realism he expected also in others. But anyway, yeah, I mean, this, I know there's gonna be a million comments. Gary, why don't you, if you want to, moderate?
Yeah, you know, as just a quick comment to start, this reminds me, and this goes back many years to when I was in high school. I had a friend that decided one summer to sell encyclopedias door to door, okay? And to do this, and he actually turned out to be their #1 salesman out of the many hundreds that they had. And what he decided to do is that he would take on these various archetypes. So one of the archetypes he took on was Superman. People did not like Superman. But what people did like was the Fool. And because with the Fool, they felt superior. You know, it gave them that feeling that they were in control and, you know, and they were superior. And so, you know, they didn't have this fear that they were being taken because they knew they were in control. And I bring this up because, you know, I think one of the things that would be interesting to look at in the evolution of the Fool and society is, you know, what level is conscious and what level is just, you know, at the really baser types of emotions. What type of questions is it really bringing up in people? Is it bringing up questions of a higher order, things that make people question things about themselves and their society and their way of being? Or is it just, you know, does it just make them feel superior and kind of just appeal to some of their baser instincts? And that would be, you know, like, that would be Jim Crow, like, oh yes, you know, I'm like vastly superior. But Elaine, would you like to begin?
Yeah, that was just fabulous, Azin, because it just resonated so much with me. And what a clear and thoughtful and well-researched presentation. The slides were wonderful. Your whole demeanor, I mean, just astounding. Thank you so much for that. But when I was a sand tray therapist, the clown was one of my archetypes. I had about 1,000 on the shelf, little figurines, you know. But that was the one I identified with because the clown who had orange hair, we noticed, right? And the circus clown I'm thinking of, he whitens his face. So there's the anti-racist thing going on there. That's kind of interesting. And the orange hair, like one of your figurines, I forget which one.
Zwarte Piet.
Swarty Pete. Okay, Swarty Pete, right. I've heard of him actually. And I loved all the Persian mythology. Oh, because Zoroastrianism, what a cool religion that is, you know.
And would it be a pity to lose all this great history because nowadays it's interpreted as something racist, you know, and it might be racist, but this is really important question. What should we do with this?
Yeah.
That is not politically correct.
Well, the clown anyway is he's sad, and so he makes people laugh because he doesn't want them to see his sadness because he's really a therapist and a spiritual figure. And that's really just all I wanted to say about that. But thanks.
Thank you very much.
Great. Angelique?
Thank you so much, Azin. I loved the presentation and really, I loved the conflict, what it means when there is a natural evolution of an archetypal image through the eons, and what it means when we are trying to literalize the symbolic. Because I think these two are different things.
Yeah.
Archetypal images are meant to evolve through time, I feel. But then if we tend to approach the symbolic in order to make it literal and flat, then I think we might have an impact on the anima mundi. I think it transforms. we transform it through this process. That's my feeling. So it's like Nietzsche saying the god Pan is dead, you know. What it means that Pan is dead. If you literalize a symbol, then the symbol, I guess, might be dead on one level of reality. Then it will have to transform into something else. I suppose Jung showed that in connecting Wotan with the Second World War. Because it seems that Wotan was already starting to be literalized. It was starting to be taken more literal than as an archetypal force. And that I think Jung showed that it came with results, because then Wotan was, as an archetype, was working on another level through the collective. And it sort of, for Jung, made his manifestation in the spirit of the Second World War. So I guess many strange things might happen when there is a tendency from the human side to literalize an archetype. So it will flatten it to the eyes of the beholders, but then perhaps through enantiodromia, it will give it extra strength, making it to manifest, to go deeper into the unconscious, like all the pagan gods, but then they will be made expressed through more violent aspects, unknown to us. So that was one thing I really liked in your presentation, you know, the gradual widening of the faces, and then this judgment that comes from a social source upon the archetypal. So I loved it because it says so much about what is happening in an interaction between social judgments and archetypal forces. It's a dialogue, very powerful, and then we receive it. And another thing, in the Eleusinian lore, the fool is Baubo, is Iambe, and she makes fool of Demeter at the lowest of her position, and she speaks very dirty to the goddess. And according to it's when she has lost all the courage, when she has stopped eating and she doesn't want, and the earth stops producing anymore, and she really speaks dirty and with sexual innuendos. And according to the Orphic hymn, she raises her skirts and shows her private parts to Demeter. And the fooling the god sometimes wakes the god up. So Demeter has a burst and a belly laughter, according to Pincola Estes, and that makes the earth produce again. So the fool, I think, is not just someone who revives emotions and wakes up strong forces within us humans, but it really does something to the gods. So the fool, I suppose, plays a role towards the archetype itself. It transforms the archetype itself.
Yeah.
So by us literalizing the symbolic, there should definitely be consequences. Because then who is the fool to the goddess or the god? You know, who takes that role so that the divine is being revived? You know, Jung said that not only we are transformed by the archetypes, but then we transform the manifestation of the archetypes. And it's an interrelated process. So I really loved it. It was a vibrant presentation. It really worked with this too. So amazing. Thank you very much for that.
Sure. Could you write down the name of that fool with Demeter? I think what you said, I think the manifestation or what you said, literalizing, are the same. I think it's a process. that this force, archetypal force, comes from unconscious, comes to the surface of ego, social, collective conscious. It manifests, and we put a name on it, and we label it and literalize it. And by doing that, we kill it, right? And then it goes to another circle of rebirth, right? I think that's it. That's how I see it. And I think the fool is really important, because even if you want to be the magician, you need the fool. The fool lets you laugh at yourself and let go of whatever you were, you know. I let go of whatever I was. I'm able to laugh at myself. And actually, somebody yesterday said on Facebook that if you have a planet on your 12th house, you will be a dark mirror to people. And I actually experienced that. For some reason, when I go into any relationship, I show people their dark side. They saw it in me. I'm not trying to do anything. It's a part of Persephone, I don't know. But I feel that this fool, by blackening its face, it's showing a dark mirror to everybody, you know, criticizing the system. And they can be really, really scary. I mean, in Austria, one of these clowns came to me, and whatever I was doing, he was mimicking, he was doing the same. And I didn't know what to do with myself. It was really scary, you know. I was disarmed completely. So it's really, I think it's really powerful archetype. Thank you.
Angelique, you always speak so clearly. You know, the dialogue between social justice and the symbol, you know, is so important. And where at some point we make social justice is very important for liberating people who have been dehumanized. Okay. But to some extent, we're dehumanizing people who are presenting the symbol, because the social justice has become too literal. And you know what, since I got a week off, I was reading Revisioning Psychology by Hillman, and he says that anytime we literalize anything, it becomes satanic, you know, and we need the fool to come in and make it into a metaphor. And the idea, Hillman says, we are metaphors. You know, we need to realize that what we call me is a metaphor. And how do we make it, take the literalness away from it? We need the owl mirror. We need the fool to make it not literal anymore. But that was the dialogue between social justice and the symbolic. That's wonderful, Angelique.
I agree. That was wonderful, Angelique. Dalia, do you have a comment?
Oh, yes. And thank you very much.
You started all this.
Yeah. So thanks. You catch the fish. I don't know. You catched it. So yeah, I had many thoughts about the, and I just say, like, I know that also some of them, they have horns, like they look like devils. Yeah. And I remember from my childhood when I was like, my grandma used to tell me if I was like stubborn or doing something, things like, oh, look, you have horns growing, like be careful. that's the something, you know, you becoming like kind of maybe animalistic. I'm not sure what she was talking, but be careful if you have.
Because you were not acting civil, you were animalistic.
Yeah, that's the message. But and yeah, I was very okay. So to start with, maybe I asked the question because I think, okay, it was like idea like that about the politics a little bit and about the actual events. And I was like, you know, I read a lot of things, what's going on in Ukraine and about the president, which is like really was presented like Ukrainian president, like he used to be an actor, a comedian, the one who like everyone was expecting him to fly the country when the war will start, and he did everything completely differently than it was expected, and it was like, oh, that, I don't know, it stuck in my mind because it's also close culturally, and so that's why I think then I ask the question. And I think maybe personally I'm closest when I love beginning things, like I love starting new things, and if I have nothing, I don't know anything about it, that's even better, like just jump right in. So it's I can kind of recognize a bit of that feeling. So yeah, and also like I didn't know that Persian New Year starts in spring equinox, so I also have a feeling that my year starts in spring equinox. So thanks for sharing. It's very enriching.
Great. Thank you, Dalia. Kevin?
Yeah, sure. I was thinking exactly as Dalia. Actually, without getting too political, Zelensky, like she said, was an actor that turns into this now hero figure. So I think he's like a perfect, at least from my point of view, a perfect example of the going from trickster to the heroic, but he has also carried some consciousness with him, because he's able to unite the NATO nation and the European nation. And the European nation, what they have lost is patriotism and some sense of nationalistic. So the European has lost this completely, probably has to do with history and the fear that somehow, but they have a secret longing for it as well, which I feel like Zelensky is carrying with him now. And so I just feel like it's very difficult to not talk about this development from this trickster, also a carrier as naturalistic consciousness, and without, because we are seeing it, at least for me, that's what I see every day. Even the other day, I heard interview of Zelensky. He was very serious, and by the end of the interview, he was like doing like he took his one of the eyes, you know, this unseriousness aspect to the whole thinking. You know, there is this seriousness to it, but on the other side, there is also this unseriousness to it. You know, this is the war of, you know, good and dark and all of this play we see in, but it's a very dangerous and serious play, but it nevertheless, there's some, yeah, I feel like he understands it, the play of opposite, which the trickster does. And only I feel like trickster can unite nation, and Ukraine is the border between the split, you know, of Russia and Europe and the Western mentality in general. So yeah, that's it.
Very interesting.
Yeah, great comment, Kevin. Kat?
Hi, Azin. That was an amazing workshop, and I look forward to many more of your workshops.
Thank you.
You've done it now. You've really done it now. First, there is lots of things, but you know, I think the problem is sometimes, you know, like, I understand what everyone's saying, and people saying, oh, you can't make these things political, it's this, it's tradition and everything else. But unfortunately, it's kind of like, I don't know whether we have the consciousness for those traditions anymore, of like the underworld stuff and things like that. And whereas before people did, it was appropriate. Now we kind of don't. It's kind of like we're trying to revive something that we have no connection to. And so it kind of comes out in ways where people do take it as being racist. I mean, over here we have Morris dancers, and they used to blacken their faces, you know, traditionally, and it was part of playing tricks on landowners. So it's the workers that used to work in manor houses and things like that. And at certain times of the year, I think it was after harvest and, you know, gathering corn or something, perhaps even after Christmas, they would have a celebration, the people that worked on the land with the landowners. And part of that celebration was to blacken their faces and play tricks on the landowners. And it was simply to disguise themselves so they couldn't be punished by the landowners, because if they blackened their faces and dressed up in costumes or whatever, the landowners couldn't tell who to punish. Do you know what I mean? So there is that aspect, and yes, it is tradition, and I totally get that. But there's been there's been changes for that blackening of the face because of blackface and, you know, whatever. So some Morris companies have chosen dark blue because they want to be inclusive for people of color. It doesn't feel inclusive, but then if you don't understand the tradition where it comes from, it could be seen as offensive. But even if you do, because of the use of blackface or whatever, it's, you know, had a long history of being sort of degrading and again inferior. And then when you look worldwide across the whole of the world, there's this anti-black in Asian traditions and countries, India and everything else. So it's kind of, to me, in 2022, it's kind of like, do we really need to be talking about this? You know, it's really irrelevant to me. But the fact we still have to, people still have to think about these on an everyday basis. It's kind of like, as you say, where do we go from here? And we don't kind of having traditions for the sake of having them when we don't have the connection to them anymore, kind of feels a bit stale, because we're in the mindset of everything's about color, or we're having to be aware of color, but we're not aware of the underworld anymore. In some ways, we've reverted, I feel, reverted back consciously, and, you know, in consciousness. Do you see what I mean? We haven't got those interactions as such like people did in the past.
I don't think we were ever related to unconscious consciously. You know, it was always unconscious, and we are related to it still today very much unconsciously. So I don't think the connection is lost, but it has this different aspect, this personal aspect that is real and important. And I ask that if you see this guy in New York, what do you think? You will think of jam or hideous or whatever, you know, or Siavash. No, you see a black guy being humiliated or funny being humiliated. So these are, sometimes we don't have easy answers. You know?
Exactly, and this is why it's so fascinating, because there is, again, the work is in with the shadow, that a lot of that has to be cleared up, because you immediately see some caricature, but then don't trust them because they're robbers, they're thieves, they're rapists or whatever. And I even heard that about the senators that been made reference to black people and slavery and things like that. So so not to go too deep, but again, there is a lot of work to do. But it was interesting what Angelique said about the flashing of private parts at the goddess. Again, the Fool and even comedy does, well, good comedy is meant to have some sort of shock value, some sort of surprise where you don't know that the joke is coming, and then you're shocked into either laughing or, you know, responding. So I can see that aspect of the Fool in the doing something surprising to make you laugh, to shift stuckness, to shift a fixed way of being can be very fruitful. So I know that's me. Sorry, I'm rambling, but you've given me lots to think about, Azin. I'm trying to put all the dots together.
Oh, that was a great comment, Kat. Ava?
Oh, I'm just amazed about how every culture have developed their mythological figures, and the North part is maybe the least developed kind, with Odin and Thor, and it's rather poor figures, I think, right now.
It's white
It's
and
so
unknown.
much.
It's
What?
white and unknown.
And I was reading about Inanna, and there was so many varieties about what happened, and it's so complex. But I got a picture about the Inanna Gate, and it was just. Oh, I can't. Why haven't I seen it before? Because I had only seen her naked and a little figure, and it was such a great, and it was transported to Berlin before the First World War, and such a cultural greatness. And so on. Okay, it's a big thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ava. Annette?
Sorry, yes, yes, Kat, I also agree very much with you that the racist aspects are always relevant somehow. I sadly, I don't think we ever can get away from it, but that has proven to be very dangerous, you know. But the other thing I would say on a personal level, I think without any, you know, without any race or color involved, just on a personal level, I think we do need a fool to survive an archetypal procession inside ourselves. We need to trick ourselves sometimes, you know, like maybe not let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. And, you know, that's what a fool would do, you know, a little bit of trickery there to survive an archetypal possession, I think. Your life can depend on it. So that's just.
I love that, Annette. I'm going to write that down. A fool to survive the archetypal procession. I mean, that just strikes me as so true. Camelia?
Hello. Thank you, Azin. That was really lovely, and I enjoyed all the information so much. I came to think about the sort of dark mother, and Louis van Frans wrote about this in the one of the first chapters in the book that we are reading at the moment, where she speaks about how it will sort of show. It will show itself, this energy or this power will show itself in a kind of dark, trickster-like way if it isn't sort of equal to what are the sort of current patriarchal or sort of masculine energies. And I kept thinking about this when you were talking. And that made me think of, well, before you showed the picture of Baobu, which I thought was a wonderful image in the way that the whole physical body of this figure is used in a way to to make laughter, whereas in a lot of sort of historical context at the minute, the female body is something to be hidden. It's something that, well, also can be very shameful. It is something that has to be covered up, and there's lots of this, and she's just there showing it out, and that makes me laugh a lot. In terms of the darkness of the face, I think there is definitely, I don't know if it's happening sort of retrospectively or if it actually happens at the same time. It seems to me that the sort of division of Saint Nicholas and the sort of dark side of him, Krampus type figure, is also happening at the same time as colonialism. So I suppose culturally speaking or socially speaking, it's a very important aspect to keep in mind in terms of how it can be understood by people who has been suppressed through this part of the history. But I'm not for erasing any parts of history, so it's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that there might be very deep traumatic wounds coming up when we speak about these figures. And then the last thing I was thinking was, I have these, you have seen me with these glasses with big frames, and one of the problem with that is that I have blind spots. And for me, it's kind of an archetype of the fool, because I often bang into things in situations that are very unfortunate. And that is like, I feel part of this energy is sort of, presenting itself in all sort of manners of situations that sort of make sure that I do not sit on a pedestal in that moment. And I thought that was... I like to think of it in this way, that it sort of plays trick on me just daily, And for me, the glasses is one of these places, but it can happen a lot, like looking after a boy on the street, walking into a lamp post or something like that, But I'm sure there are many, many, many ways that it does this, and more serious as well. Yeah, but thank you, Azin. It was really, really pleasant to listen to.
Thank you, Camilla. That was, I love that you also gave the example of the archetype in yourself, and that made it really interesting to relate to. Diane?
Hi. Yeah, this was a really wonderful presentation, Izin. I have a special interest in Persian mythology, and I'm going to listen to this several times so I can get everything I can out of it. And it's so timely. This subject is so timely right now. It's another synchronicity. I wanted to tell you about a book series that's wonderful. I can't think of the author's last name. His first name is Christopher, and it's a series of books about this jester. I don't know if anybody's read it, but I'm going to look it up and send it to you. And it's hilarious. He's so irreverent, and it's through all periods of history. It's just a wonderful, I don't laugh out loud much when I read books, but this is just so wonderful. And I also want to just thank everyone here. I'm getting such a flavor for world history here. I taught English as a second language for years, and I met people from all over and had this kind of influence that I've missed terribly. And I really want to express my appreciation of it. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Azin, and everyone. What wonderful comments. I just This is so beautiful. And I just said, Azin or Angelique or anybody, anytime you have something has come up to the surface, let's just, we so enjoy it. And anybody here too, you know, so go ahead, Azin. What do you think of any last thoughts?
No, I'm gonna put it in YouTube also when I figure out how to record my voice and
Yeah.
do a voiceover on it. But please let me know what part of the presentation you have questions, you think it wasn't smooth, or whatever feedback you can give me before I put it on YouTube. And I'm gonna have another presentation in a few weeks if you want. I'm doing it for the Gebserian Society, the Centaur Mind. I think presentations is really important because they're so impact, and so it's a part of new systems of in education that you're gonna summarize everything 90 seconds, 1 minute. But thank you very much for listening, and thank you for your time and your feedback.
Well, thank you, everyone. And we'll finish up with 11 and 12 next couple of times. And then I thought, you know, just because of the mortar and pestle thing, that don't you think it would be something to just talk a little bit about death? I mean, just as the idea of death of our inflationary ego aspects, you know, but also maybe death itself, you know. I mean, I'll tell you, when I go into an active imagination and this ego can't stop, you know what I do first is to imagine my own funeral. You know, I really do. I mean, to have my body put in the casket, put underground, and then suddenly now I'm ready to be more permeable to the depths, because I can't get rid of this guy. I hate him. He is an impediment. You know, in fact, I see this one thing with these big mountains off to the left. That's me. And the only thing, there's a little opening here. And can I open that little space there? And that every day, that's sort of a hint of how it's going to go, you know. Well, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you guys next time. Azin, so grateful.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. This is a great group. Fantastic.
Thank you. And we're so lucky to have you all.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. We'll see you later.
Thank you, Azin. Bye.